Okay, guys, so it's going to be a bit of a boring week because I'm going to end up patching those patches we were talking about the other day, and sort of grinding back and prepping for the undercoating system that I'm using. So it's not going to be a very exciting week, but what I would like if you guys could give me some advice. I'll just show you what I'm doing. First of all, I've got that little hole up there to cap. I have this one. You can see they're treated at the moment in that Bardol Convertex. I'll bring you over and I'll show you the bottle. I need to make up a one for this. I have that bolt out, as you can see. Right, I removed it out, but that washer doesn't come with it for some reason. It may well be an inset tube that goes across here, but anyway, that's probably a good thing because that means now that my patch just needs to account for that curve. So I can do a little curve out here, and then set it around, or alternatively I could put a patch around the entire, you know what I mean, drill a hole in the sheet metal to the size of that and place it on. Because for this one up here, I have done exactly that. So I make let me see, driver's side. So give you an idea, little bee flying around me or a wasp. So that's going to place over like that, right? So that's encapsulating part of the actual mount, this part here, that's welded to the sheet metal, and then I will run a bead along the outside of this. So it's I know you're looking at a square block being pushed into a curved area, but once I get that bead along there done, the bead along here, and the bead halfway to there, right, we've got a curve forming here. Once they're in, I'll be able to account for that as a little tiny hair's gap here, so I'll be able to tap that into shape, run a bead along there, and then I'll be able to curve this around as it falls. I'll be able to curve that around, and essentially that will encapsulate that entire area. And the same, I've made basically a mirror version of that for this side. This side here, nothing too fancy, just a straight piece to go behind that. I won't fill in that hole, or fill it in with seam sealer after I put that metal plate behind it. So that's all fine and dandy. I have a fairly complex one for there because I want to get it onto this here to add some strength. So it essentially I made a right angle, fit it in there, and then curved it back here. So let me see if I got that piece. I do. So that plate will sit in, if you can see that. So that sits in, it butts up against the rear anti-roll bar mount, and it's a bit of a curve in it there because this profile is curved. You can see it there. So again, once I get a little bit of a bead here, this side I've already taken out after banging my head off the prop shaft. Good man. That there, and I'll be able to go along here, be able to form that into that gap that you can see there. Okay. And then after that, I've already kind of prepped this for it. I can then tap this along, and that will sit in against along here, and I'll zip it along there as well. So it will tie in both this mount to the body again, which is essentially where it's weak in that point. So amateur engineering here, guys. I'm not, as I'm sure I've said to you, and I'm sure it's obvious, I'm not an engineer, but you can sort of work out where the strength points are. The one back here is the scariest and the most complex of all of them so far. So we've got the petrol tank here, empty. I am actually going to drop it. I originally had intended on filling it with water and then zipping it along it, but actually it's just too tight. So I might have to take this bumper off. I'm hoping I'll be able to get away without taking the bumper off. Not that it's a big deal to do it. And essentially you have this big hole that was just fiberglass. Like the more you get into it, and I think they're all like this actually, but the more you dig into it, the more little patches of bodge jobs were done here and there, sort of thing. I think you'd find it very hard to find a like this a Mercedes w124 that's any different to this. Most of the ones I went looking at, even like I was looking at ones that were really expensive, had the corner issue on that window. So I mean, when you get digging into these things, you just keep finding more and more. But anyway, I'm going back to what I was talking about now, which is I have cut out the donor car sheet piece of metal. Let me see, can I find it here? Yeah. I'll have a little video for kind of a sideline. I might run it alongside this video, or I might upload it separately, of just prepping this up. So those 3 holes you're seeing there are the 3 spot welds here. So essentially, if you'll allow me, because it's all still covered in under seal under the car here. This hole is in the way, but that essentially sits over like that. And you can imagine that has to be a formed sheet, like you see this channel here and everything like that. I was never going to get that right. I do have to put a little fill in there of weld. I'll prep the backside as well, and so what I'll do is that's my plate for that. Now that still doesn't tackle the inside part here, but we're much better set to get that sorted. And I'll show you how. What I did was, because this was rusted but it was a full circle, so what I did was I got a piece of paper when it was one rusted piece, after the metal, all the underseal had been removed. That's why I had to stay at my bench. And then I just done that. Alright, so what I can do with that knowledge is I can get a sheet metal, cut the rest square. This piece of pay card never matched, let's say, but I can cut the rest of it out, a big piece, and then once I have that circle cut out, I can then start offering it up to that gap until it lines up. And I might have to keep trimming. Let's say this is your sheet metal. I have to obviously make my cut here and here to match in with that, but then I'll be able to trim back this edge until it actually starts to sit in. Obviously you want a little bit over because it's going to curve in, so you want it to come a little bit over this side. And when it starts curving in like that, I will then put it up and start tapping it in until the metal starts to curve and shape in. Or I'll actually add a 90-degree onto it at the start, if I can get an accurate measurement, which I doubt I can. So that should mean, because I'm using that, it should mean I should actually be able to just drop this tank and I won't have an issue. Basically it'll be able to go right back up. Now in saying that, if you can look at the gap here, there's a huge amount of space around the actual tank hole. So again, not a totally sensitive to space, if you know what I mean. We've got leeway there. There is a couple of things, guys, right? So obviously I'm not a welder, not a mechanic, not an engineer or any of that, but there's a couple of things. I took a welding course maybe let me see, how long ago did I take the welding course? Maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, and it was a 6-week course or 10-week course, but it was all stick welding. We did a MIG on the very last class. And what I have is one of these Draper flux core MIGs. So my welds are horrible, but they are strong. But a couple of tools that I found really invaluable for somebody who's not doing this all of the time and can look at something and cut it with a angle grinder perfectly. I was using an angle grinder and an air angle grinder, these really kind of small ones, and they have their place, but they are very difficult to be very accurate with. But what I found was I got myself one of these, and I never used it until I did, and then I was like amazing. So this is a shears. right? I think this is one of these things that they have in Aldi from time to time. They don't sell, and you go in maybe 2-3 weeks later, and they're there at a fiver. And when I see one, at that again, I will buy another one because it is absolutely fantastic. I'll just buy it, put it in the box, and leave it until this one breaks. But these are absolutely fantastic. And they just zip through the metal really easy. So what you can do is you can actually go over, if you've got enough spare metal, you can go over to where you want to do your patch. You can actually look at it, you can eyeball it and zip in like this. Or you can do your template, go over, find it doesn't work, it needs a little bit trimmed off, and while you're just standing there, you can just go trim it off so quick, no noise. The noise is really low, so that is actually fantastic for that. And then I got myself one of these body saws. Now I did splash out on the cost of this. This is Sealy's Premier one, so I think it was about €80, maybe something like that. So that's a little bit on the rich side for most of us guys who are not doing this every day of the week. But I thought I'd get, kind of loads of use out of it, and I do actually, because what this is, again, like a hacksaw, there's no sparks, no nothing like that, low noise, and you can actually just trim alongside real fine. So the likes of up here, I was able to kind of trim along there nice and neatly. Like, I know there's waves as your hands move and everything like that, but it's a real neat way without any sparks beside your petrol tank. So that works out really, really well. But actually what I'll do is I'll show you very quickly what the actual shears you get in Aldi is like, because that, to me, was the most amazing one. Hold on, I'll just set this camera up for you to see it. Let me see what you're seeing there. Yeah, you're getting a pretty good sight line there. So you can hear that. I don't know how that's coming out in camera, but it's not loud in comparison to most of these kind of things. And then just some metal. Let me just draw a little line on it so you can see what I want to do. So let me see. We've got a crap cut here. So let's draw a straighter line. I hope you can see that across to even that sheet out. And for the amateur guy now, remember, just look how handy this is. I hope you can see it. Job done. Simple as that. No noise. Well, very little noise, as I say, and ultra easy to use. I hope that came across on the video, because I'm using the camera kind of flip back, so I can't actually see exactly what you're getting. The other thing that I see, people are always talking about all the different rust remedy stuff you can get. The local guys sell this, and this is the main reason I go for it, is because it's the local guys that sell it. So I can run in and get more and more bottles of it. That's Bardol Convertox 944 Pro. It's relatively expensive. I can't remember the price offhand. It's relatively expensive, but you get this liter bottle of it, and like that does a great job. I think it does a great job. It turns black. It does all the usual consumer stuff that makes us think that it works. But what I find is I can paint that on, and then when this is all ready, what I will end up doing is I will end up loading the spray gun with it. Your normal primer gun, 1.8 millimeter tip on it. And I will load the gravity fed spray gun, and I will just the entire underbody of this car is getting treated with that Convertox stuff. So anything I miss, so you can see it there, anything I miss will get hit with it anyway. Convertox, then I will go around and I will put my seam sealers around all of that, and then it will get the epoxy mastic. Now that's not an epoxy primer, that's epoxy mastic. It's much harder stuff than a primer. And then after that, I'm on two minds. One, I could go for a bed liner, which is very, very hard. Hard surface, and there's a lot of pros and cons. I've heard a lot of cons about it because like powder coating, as soon as a hard surface, as soon as it fails, they really fail. The water just creeps in behind. Now, in saying that, mine will already have that epoxy mastic behind it, so this is just to give an aesthetic finish to it, if you know what I mean. It's just a secondary layer. Or I could do the Gravitex stuff, which is what I've used in the past. And the Gravitex stuff is quite good. Like I found it quite good. I used it on my Pajero Jeep, and I really like it. And it seems to be rated the highest for kind of underbody sealer from like local people, let's say. So they're my two options at the moment. A bed liner would look cool. It would probably fill out all of those seams that I'm putting into it, like, you know, where I'm welding these areas here. You know, it'll probably sort out all of that, but might end up failing, you know. They're just not on the go long enough for us to know how they'll actually fare in the long run. Anyway, guys, that was a long video. We're at 16 minutes now. I hope it was worthwhile, riveting stuff. I'm signing off now, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.